will be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
That's your president last night threatening to get the highest court in the land involved, hoping it will swing the election to him. And today, his campaign suing to stop ballot counting in Michigan and Pennsylvania. He wants a recount in Wisconsin, although we're hearing right now there's somewhat possibly cold feet on that. We also told you at the top of the program, Michigan, Wisconsin, they went blue today, but still counting mail ballots in Pennsylvania. That leaves 4 states off the board, and they're all close. Trump leading by 5 right now in Pennsylvania. He's up about 1.5 points in North Carolina, similar margin in Georgia. Biden leading by 1.5 points in Nevada. Every state now counting mail-in ballots from primarily Democratic strongholds, which is why Biden is now favored to win the election. I want to bring in our guest to discuss. Professor Paul Gronke teaches political science at Reed College. He's one of the nation's foremost experts when it comes to voting integrity, and I dragged this poor guy into this last night, and we're going to do it again to him. And by the way, Paul, I got Andrew Whitman here with me. So if you hear an inanimate,
you did last night.
Yes. Oh yeah, last night there was meltdowns. So first off, can we just, to even the non-educated on this, the smell test of saying, wait, stop counting ballots in Pennsylvania, but we better count every single ballot we find here in Arizona and Nevada. It doesn't sound like somebody who wants to have every vote counted. I said to Andrew, it's the heads I win, tails you lose theory, right?
Yeah, it feels that way, Richard. The ballots aren't being found. Of course, they're sitting, they've been delivered to local offices. As I said I just sort of only semi-jokingly to a local official that I know here, they'll talk about these releases of data that they do every couple hours, and sort of the term of art in the community is a ballot dump. I've said, perhaps we need to stop using that term. Some people are hearing that wrong. But yeah, the ballots that have come in late are these absentees. We want to count all of those. We want to give election officials the time and space to do that. And yeah, we want to be consistent, count them in every state. Oddly enough, if we stopped the counting right now, Joe Biden would win with 3? We'd have quite a significant margin. So it's kind of odd to stop the counting at this point.
In terms of the damages, or at least the harm that Trump found. First of all, there's zero evidence of fraud right now, as he alleged last night. But moreover, for the Supreme Court to hear the case, now I'm going to get in the weeds a little bit. In Pennsylvania, the state Supreme Court ruled as to the 3 extra days, and as long as it was postmarked, the state legislature did not. Could that be the only argument? And now it would seem bizarre at this time to litigate it, that the Supreme Court could even hear something like that. Can you give any rationale why the High Court would get involved? It's really only 2000 where they've weighed in on state elections.
Absolutely. And that 2000 election, people would want to remember we were approaching what's called the safe harbor deadline, which was December 8th, when results have to be certified. And that was the point at which it moved to the federal level, to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has had 2 chances to weigh in on this state Supreme Court decision in Pennsylvania. And in both cases, they have not. So the question there is going to be, will they grant cert? Are they willing to take on this case? It would be very difficult. I mean, Richard, to have Barrett be the deciding vote in this circumstance when all the ballots have not even been counted yet. I hope we're not there. It looks at this point like the trajectory is such that Pennsylvania will not be critical, that Biden looks likely to be declared victor in the next day or 2 without the need for Pennsylvania. But again, I hope we're not at that point where we're going straight to the Supreme Court.
I asked you a lot of questions, and you talked me off the roof last night. Thank you, Paul. In terms of the role of the post office and delivering the ballots, to that end, explain where we are right now in terms of, have all the ballots, to your knowledge, been delivered? And if there are problems with ballots, there's a smudge or what, the opportunity to cure, how does that work at this point?
Absolutely. So where we are now, I have seen some discussions among election lawyers that there are some small tranches, numbers of absentee ballots that look like they may not have been delivered on time, but we're talking in the thousands, not the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. It does appear the pressure from advocacy groups and from lawyers to get, and from the courts, compelled the USPS to put some overtime in and do some last minute sweeps in a number of states. So that's very good news. What's happening now, Nevada is probably the best example, Richard. So in Nevada, they sent out a ballot to every voter. So we don't know how many ballots are coming back. We're essentially Nevada moving up to the point of the final turnout number. And that's why Nevada is sort of curious and intriguing and probably giving a bit of heartburn to some people in the Biden camp. So we're waiting. Those ballots are in. And yes, they have to be opened and processed. They decided in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, to let their workers have some time off to get some sleep. As I said last night, I was up quite late last night cheering on, I think, the heroic efforts in Wisconsin. Those 1,850 clerks, Richard, they stayed up all night. They pulled all-nighters, and they got the results in. And I think, this is why, so they could avoid this long stretch that we're seeing in Nevada and Pennsylvania. So yeah, the ballots are coming in. They're looking at them. They're judging if there's if they need to have a visible postmark or not. Then they need to open them. They need to validate the signatures, open them. They need to be flattened. I know this sounds like, well, flattening paper. Well, when you've got 10,000 pieces of paper, it's got to be flattened. And they've got to be scanned and read. And yes, if there's smudges or stray marks, states have different rules and procedures about how much voter intent can be interpreted in those situations. So that's where we may have some space for litigation. But if the margin is large enough for one candidate, that's not what they, as they call again in the field, the margin of litigation needs to be wide enough.
And I know Andrew's got a question. I'll just say that I never thought I'd be watching the Wisconsin Board of Elections, but I was so like you moved when I heard that press conference because it just showed competence. It said, listen, if you want to watch the process, watch the process. This is what we do. They took their job seriously. They took their role in this democratic enterprise seriously. So again, and I'll turn over to Andrew, but to me, I looked at that and I said, for all the things that were wrong about this election, that wasn't one of them. They did their job right.
It was the ex-governor Scott Walker who came out last night and pushed back hard against President Trump, pushed back hard in the statement.
Very quickly, I know we're tight on time. This talk of challenging the results and stopping the counting. Is there an election to challenge? Because no state has certified its election yet. Is that talk premature? And stopping the count, I've only heard of stopping recounts, not stopping initial counts.
You're a details guy, I guess, right? Come on. Yes, that's right. So again, Andrew, exactly. In Florida, they were at a point where they were getting close to the certification deadline. Certification had occurred in a number of other counties, and we were waiting on these key counties. So yeah, the rhetoric here, Richard and I were talking about this a month ago, the president's rhetoric about, stopping the count. Well, as many have pointed out, if we stop the count right now, Biden would win these key states. And, ballots are not still being cast, they're being counted. We're at that point. Final results have not been certified. So it's too soon to talk about going to the court. I think this is President Trump, again, just trying to ramp up the rhetoric and kind of sow discord.
Thanks.
Well, Paul, your students, they're getting a terrific education. I got a freshman in college right now, poli-sci major herself here, and I'm like, but they're living through this, but they're also understanding how this works and also in some cases doesn't work. Professor, I always appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Richard, we'll talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. When we come back, if Biden wins, he will more than likely be dealing with the Republican Senate. After the break, we'll discuss how that could all play out and whether or not Biden could wind up turning a negative possibly into a positive.